Hey there, this is Nick of the Ravens Loft. Welcome back, true believers. In today's video, we're delving into one of the most debated and controversial Spider-Man storylines ever, One More Day. So brace yourselves for a roller coaster, and let's jump right into it.
I'm going to die!
Now, just to give a quick summary, what is Spider-Man One More Day? What happened? What caused all this debate? What caused all this controversy? Let's break it down. See, One More Day takes us on a heart-wrenching journey as Peter faces a life-altering choice. What is that choice? How did this story divide so many people? Well, let's start at the very beginning. Act 1. Love, loss, and desperation. You see, the story begins with a tragedy striking Peter's personal life. Aunt May, his beloved guardian, caretaker, mother-like figure, the person that has raised him after all this tragedy occurred, has been at his side this whole entire time, lies on her deathbed after being caught in the crossfires of a battle involving Spider-Man. Desperate to save her life, Peter turns to every possible solution, including seeking help from Doctor Strange and the mystical arts. So we've got the setup, we've got the dynamic. This is a classic Spider-Man setup story. Aunt May's in trouble. Peter needs to do something. There's nothing really new here, but this is where things now take a dive, when we start entering into the consequential part that probably divided everything and would turn things in a way that there's no turning back from this moment. So what was that? And that's a deal with the devil. Enter Mephisto. Mephisto? How do you ever say it? A demonic entity with the power to alter reality. He's kind of like the MCU's, the Marvel Universe's sort of like devil-like figure. You know, deal with the devil type of guy. So in a last-ditch effort to save Aunt May, Peter makes a sort of bargain with him. But what's the cost? Well, it happens to be Peter's marriage to Mary Jane Watson. Yes, believe it or not, at one point or another, Peter and MJ were married. We've been away from this for quite a while, but there was a moment in time in continuity where their marriage was a thing. And it seems like Marvel does not ever want to return to that. So, in exchange for Aunt May's life, Peter's love for MJ is erased from existence, and their marriage is wiped from history. Which, at the time, was huge. This was a big altering thing. This was almost in line with the Civil War storyline arc of Peter revealing his whole entire identity, which was the catalyst to this. When Peter revealed his identity to people during Civil War, it brought a barrage of people trying to attack him, which resulted in One More Day. Now, there's a lot of consequences and controversy that came out of this. So following the deal that Peter made to wipe out and reshape everything, Peter finds himself single and alone with no recollection of his past marriage. The storyline is ignited with fierce debate among fans, and it's still debated to this day, who felt the erasure of Peter and MJ's marriage was a drastic and unnecessary change to Spider-Man's continuity. I'm kind of in that camp too. I don't think it was necessary. I don't think it was needed. Some of you felt the same way. Some of you didn't. So what did it look like moving forward? You know, as Peter navigated the aftermath of One More Day, he must grapple with the consequences of his decision. The emotional toll weighs heavy on him as he questions the morality of his choice and his decisions. There's a lot of key points and things that ignited the heated discussion surrounding the arc and this whole entire controversial storyline, which had kind of just been building up to this moment. But what are the exact things that turned away readers, which turned away fans, and really saw a whole entire new change in the Spider-Man mythos? Why were people so heated about this? So let's talk about that for a second. Number one, the erasure of Peter Parker and Mary Jane's marriage. Okay, that's going to be the top of the bill here. The primary source of all the controversy stemmed from that main decision to erase Peter Parker and Mary Jane's marriage, just straight up from continuity. Ton of fans, a lot of people felt this was the most disingenuous and just disregarded years of character development. Now that's becoming a reoccurring issue now. Like at that time, it didn't happen as much to just erase whole entire bits of continuity. I mean, you get it here and there, but to be on this level where you lose 20 to 30 years worth of stories, as a reader, you felt like, wow, you just did away with all that. I've been reading all this, and now you're telling me it doesn't matter. So a lot of time, in ways, they're eliminating fundamental aspects of Spider-Man's personal life. Number two, another thing that huge, which we just talked about a little bit, it was disregard for continuity, and character growth. Guys, I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. Okay, so what does it matter about continuity and what does it matter about character growth? If you're into reading stories, if you're into any sort of story stuff, you're heavily involved and interested or invested in these characters. So many fans, such as myself, were disappointed by the retconning of Peter and MJ's marriage. Okay, we're saying that tons of times, as it nullified significant character growth and emotional arcs. The relationship between Peter and Mary Jane had been portrayed as a mature and enduring partnership, and erasing that seemed to undermine the emotional investment readers made in their story. I cannot emphasize enough how it is so dumb to disregard and throw away things that your audience is reading, how they're following a storyline. You basically almost turn back on them and say, you don't matter, what you've been reading doesn't matter. That's a really good way to alienate people and cause an outcry. Hey, if you're doing this for a quick buck to get some money in, this is a terrible idea. Unless you disagree, I'm having a hard time finding the people that disagree with this move. They must be out there. Sound off below. Give me a sound off in the comments. Let me know if you exist. Okay, number 3, the role of the devil. See, the storyline's reliance on a demonic character grew criticism from fans who felt it was an overly convenient plot device. It was just too convoluted. It doesn't fit in with the Spider-Man mythos and stories. See, the narrative decision to resort to a supernatural solution to resolve the conflict clashed with the grounded, relatable Spider-Man stories. And that's kind of like the thing that made Spider-Man so relatable was his with great power comes great responsibility. There's a grounded feel to it. To add this super convoluted supernatural element to it took away from a lot of elements. And now this one we've already kind of touched upon, but I think it's the biggest, and it's the biggest takeaway that I've lack of reader consensus. All right, the strong backlash and divided opinions among fans further amplified the controversy. Now, you see, some readers appreciated the creative risk. I've yet to find them. I've yet to hear that opinion, but apparently it must be out there at some point. Maybe they were just Marvel shills. They were paid to say that. Again, if you exist, sound off below if you thought this storyline was amazing. But I digress by saying, while others saw it as a betrayal of the character, I'm in that camp. I'm in the camp that thinks it was a betrayal of character. It's not a bad thing to have characters married, to tell more mature, earlier stories. The contentious nature of the storyline really created a lasting divide within the Spider-Man fanbase that to this day they still haven't healed. They still haven't really rebounded from. Like they dig in their heels in further by saying, no, we will never go back to that. So Spider-Man One More Day remains a polarizing storyline. It just significantly impacted the Spider-Man community and has really created a huge divide. Now, this begs a question. I threw this out there, and you never know what sort of response you're gonna get. So we're gonna pick a few here that came up that a lot of you were saying over and over again, and I want to bring up kind of a mention here. But Marvel really seems to be digging their heels in that they don't want certain married characters. I won't generalize. They will allow some, but it seems like I originally was saying just the comic industry in general, but a lot of you helped correct me or just simply established like, hey, that's not true now, or as widely spread, it seems to just be the Spider-Man office. So I asked a while back on Twitter, why does Marvel hate married couples? Just to some degree, I'm generalizing, summarizing here, and just putting out a feeler, putting out something dumb. You guys know me. If it's dumb, I'm gonna say it. So with that, you guys gave a resounding, you guys spoke out in droves. So I wanted to pick apart some of these here, and let's take a look and see what you had to say. What is the frame of mind? What are you guys thinking? So here? Mr. Bug here starts off with saying, cough, marriage terrifies them. Marriage means commitment. Marriage means character growth, evolving, and not being in the status quo. Okay, do you think that's a reason why maybe Marvel is skirting this, why they're not staying with it? Because now they have to stay committed to an actual storyline. Anime, who is another YouTuber here, check out his channel, says the phrase "write what you know" comes to mind. So now, do you agree with that? Does that imply that these guys actually at the helm, sitting there writing these books, do they know what a married couple acts like? Do they know how to write married couples? And let's not say maybe they aren't married, maybe they are. Maybe it's just the general, they don't know how to. I'm not saying they do or don't. Let me know. Chrono Crawler says marriage means two characters with complex but strong relationship standards. No less room to grow, but a hell of a lot harder to keep things balanced. I think that's a good point. As writers, there's this struggle to create tension. Someone else brings it up later that sometimes it becomes melodrama. How do you keep things interesting? How do you keep things growing? How do you keep a plot interesting? Because now you're working with a new dynamic. Are comics in general just afraid to touch upon the idea of marriage, of characters being married? Is this something that is just relatively new, or something that just current creators, editors, people at the top, is this something that we've seen? Well, let's break that down real quickly with number one, historical context. Historically, comic book publishers have maintained a belief that married characters were less relatable to readers. Again, we're talking about a young demographic readership here that weren't getting married. They're in school. They're object of or goals in life weren't to get married quite at that point yet. So the perception was rooted in this idea that readers wanted to project themselves onto the character, which isn't completely undifferent now, but we're in a new day and age where a lot of young kids aren't picking up comics like they used to nowadays. Like, the general demographic has shifted. There are still kids reading it, but we're talking about, like, if we're looking at the big two superheroes like Batman, Spider-Man, and that, is it mostly adults that are picking up comics now? And this isn't the movies, we're talking about the comics. So, could they easily embody the wish fulfillment and an escapism of these characters now? Number two, narrative flexibility and tension. See, marriage is often seen as a potential obstacle to the inherent drama and conflict that drives the superhero story. So, back in the day, let's look back further. Whether you agree or not, it used to be about like the superhero and the damsel in distress. Even the Fleischer Superman cartoons, it was about Superman saving everyone, but also then Lois getting in this scenario where Superman had to save her. So there's always, like, if we go back to this idea of wish fulfillment, of people needing to be saved, we've changed kind of that dynamic now. So the writers may be hesitant to portray a married couple due to the perception that this, it's hard, it's reducing narrative tension. 3, you have editorial decisions and market demands. You see, publishers and editorial teams sometimes make decisions based on market research and sales trends. So are we seeing a large sales trend where people want to see married couples? And if they are, maybe they're not buying. But again, have a ton of people walked away from comics. Are people buying comics in large droves like they used to? And maybe these people that are looking at sales data aren't getting good quantifiable data because so many people have walked away because they're not giving the readers what they want. Neil Fix says, I think it's more the publishers have the idea that it's not as good for storytelling. Okay, interesting thought process here. He thinks that the publishers themselves aren't key to that idea. Now, is this more of a Marvel problem? Pronounce this Hujungus? Okay, I hope I got that right. Says, this one is easy. Most of them have never been married or in a healthy relationship. They aren't imaginative and can't put themselves in that type of situation. That last part is crucial for being a writer. Empathy and the big two are they're deficient. Oh man, in this area of their writing staff. Guys, I'm having the hardest time pronouncing stuff today. Okay, do you agree with that? Do you think they are lacking healthy relationships? Do you think they aren't in actual married things? Is this something that they're lacking in terms of imagination, story writing capabilities? That's a huge thing to claim. We've got the problematic Kev Hulk 73 here saying, because, as I was told by a writer I had an argument with, Pete is a character with problems for a younger audience, and they can't relate to a married guy. He becomes an old guy in their minds. I don't agree, but there you go. That does come across in terms of the marketing and publishing for Spider-Man, as he's always been the young. He was the first teenage, no, not the first. He was, considered he was a teenage superhero, and now he's an adult. He's grown up, and that's one of the things I love about like manga is like if it is the story, the characters age with the reader. Like they start out young, like Naruto is now an adult. He's got a son. They grew up with the audience. And you can still go, new readers can still come in and start from the beginning and get caught up and keep going with it. RPX Jazz says, that only became a thing because of Joe Quesada. Yes, Joe Quesada was the main pilot, the huge drive towards this storyline. We didn't dive too much to that in this video, but if you look up a little bit, you'll find out how much he spearheaded this. Ladies Man 217 says, Marvel is scared, but DC has multiple hero couples, best example being Wally West and Linda Park. Yeah, it does seem like Marvel and DC are kind of bringing those. I'm sorry, DC is bringing that back. Archlick Acerek. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. A healthy marriage in comics means there's less drama in the hero's personal life. For example, Joe Quesada hated Spidey being married, so much so that he wrote a convoluted bargain to get rid of it. Marvel's not the only guilty party though, but at least DC is aware. The depressed Old Neat says, I think Comics Explained did a video on this, mainly because it's a hard balancing act of making the romance post-marriage interesting alongside putting in action without turning it into melodrama. Cameron says, thank God Superman and Wally West are in a good relationship. Rosalind of Division 5 writes, I'm not a superhero writer, but I've seen so many people afraid to write about committed relationships in other genres. I feel like it's due to a lack of life experience. Most people I know aren't in healthy relationships, married or not. People will write what they know. Just Some Canuck says, because people idolize Harley and the Joker's relationship, when the real winning relationship is right here. Not even death can tear them apart. Not for long anyways. I think it comes down to the classic adventurer hero character trope that experiences new things. Have flirtatious encounters and get caught in will they won't they scenarios. Like Indiana Jones, James Bond, and the writer mistakenly believes a long-lasting relationship would put a damper on possible story arcs. And if they do end up in a relationship, it often is at odds with their lifestyle, and thus vilify the partner, knowingly or not. It's a fun way to write characters, but hampers their possible character growth. Writers in some audiences tend to love their status quo, but sometimes that hurts the titles more than making them interesting. For example, fans love Peter Parker and MJ. They want them married, but that would throw a wrench in future possible love interests for the Wallcrawler. It completely stops any chance for there to be further exploration of other characters, to which point now you have to stay committed to that storyline. Because then I think One More Day is a perfect example of having to undo it. You divide a fan base, you cause all this controversy, and it just creates this negative wave that Spider-Man is still kind of dealing with. There's still a lot of repercussions from it. Anyways, thanks for sticking around. Make sure to give this a like, subscribe, stick around for more fun videos as we dive into more comic, manga, anime, superhero stuff, and just discover more story stuff. Hey, if you enjoyed this, also consider checking out our books, such as Winnie the Pooh, Demon Hunter, or Demon Hunter Raven. And we'll catch you next time. Otherwise, peace out. And remember to be responsible with your stories, because with great story capabilities comes great story responsibilities. Whatever. Anyways, I get tongue-tied a lot, so forgive me for mispronouncing stuff. Oh my gosh, you're still listening. If you're still listening, thank you. Holy cow, you're still here? Wow. God bless. Have a great day. Kumbaya. Wow, you're still here. Okay. Well, see you next time.